Welcome back, or welcome if you're new. It is Sunshine Laverna and I'm going to be taking you through my 10 classics I want to read in 2022. So we're going to be talking about all the classics that I am planning to read this year. I did one of these videos in 2021. I did not read all of those books, but we're not here to discuss that. We're not talking about that video, guys. That's not what this video is about. However, if you saw last year's one, there'll be some on this list that was on last year's list, guys, because, didn't get to them. But this will be the year, guys. It'll be the year that we get these read. Promise. So I'm just going to get straight into it. The first one I am going to be kicking off with is Emma by Jane Austen. So this is all 6 novels in this one. It's a massive book, but gorgeous, guys. Gorgeous. Let's appreciate this for just a moment, guys. Is it not just beautiful? It is beautiful. But yes, Emma. Fun fact, this was on last year's list and I actually started it and I got partway through in November. But I was a bit of, I think because I read so much in October, like spooky season, I went crazy and read a ton of books, which I enjoyed, guys. I enjoyed. And then I was trying to read Emma in November and I was trying to take it into December. And honestly, I was just like, I'm not feeling this right now. But I knew I wanted to still read it. It's not like a DNF, it's not the moment for me to read this type thing. Because yes, I know Emma's supposed to be funny, supposed to be witty, and I just wasn't, my brain wasn't present in the book. I just wasn't taking it in. And I know I've heard it's a lot of people's favourites. So I was like, I need to be in the right mindset to come back into it. So in 2022, guys, we're going to read and finish this one. We will read and finish it. So yes, it follows our main character, Emma. She is rich, she is clever, she is beautiful, and she has no intentions whatsoever about getting married. She doesn't want to get married, okay, which is, honestly, for the time set of this is really unique, I think, because you don't ever really hear of it, like back in the 1800s, people just been like, oh, I don't want to get married. But yes, that's unique, so I find that fact quite interesting. However, she does like interfering in other people's love lives and likes matching people and finding matches. So she has like a protege or like a friend, and she really wants to like set her up in a match, but something goes wrong and there's consequences that she never expected to happen. I don't know what they are, but I've heard that it's funny. Really bring through that Jane's like humour in this one, so I think I'm gonna really enjoy it. And guys, again, the stunning copy, I have to read it. I have the whole collection, so yeah, I will. So what I have here is The Secret Garden, guys. This is the Italian edition, which again, do you not just love this cover? Sprayed edges, and then it's like really nice and like pretty inside as well. So I want to read at least one book in Italian in 2022, and I bought this when I was in Italy for Christmas, and yes, I think this is perfect. It's a children's classic, so for Italian level, for me, it is good. It's a good choice, I think, and I do like The Secret Garden. I've seen the film many times, but I've never actually read the book that I can remember. So yes, the story here follows a young girl called Mary. She returns to England from India after losing both her parents in a cholera epidemic there. However, her memories of her parents are not pleasant, as they are a selfish, neglectful and pleasure-seeking couple. Mary is given to the care of her uncle Archibald, whom she's never met. She travels to his home, located in the gloomy Yorkshire, a vast change from the sunny and warm climate she's used to. When she arrives, she's rude, stubborn and given to stormy temper tantrums. However, her nature undergoes a gradual transformation when she learns of the tragedies that have befallen her strict and disciplinarian uncle, whom she early feared and despised. Once, when he's away from home, Mary discovers a walled garden, which is always kept locked. The mystery deepens when she hears signs of sobbing from somewhere within her uncle's vast mansion. The kindly servants ignore her queries or pretend they haven't heard, spiking Mary's curiosity. Yeah, so that's it. Yes, guys, that's like the premise. I have not seen the film in years. I know, was it last year, 2 years ago, they came out with like a new one, which I haven't watched, but we're going to read it in Italian, guys. So we're going to read it in Italian, so it's an extra challenge for me, actually. But again, love this edition, and yes, that's going to be quite the challenge for me, so that will be fun, guys. It'll be fun. We'll get it done in Italian so that I can tick off that other goal. And then the next one I have here is Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. This was on last year's list, guys, and I didn't get to it. It is a chunky one, guys. It is a chunky one. It's like over 800 pages, just over 800 pages. So, you know, it's a big one. It's a big one. So this is a Russian classic. I have never read a Russian classic, which is why I want to choose this. And this one seems one of the easier Russian classics, because I don't know about you guys, but Russian classics, it seems so daunting, you know, like War and Peace, Crime and Punishment. They're always these big, like, scary seeming novels, and I mean, they're well regarded, so they're obviously well written. It's just, you know, getting over that fear, guys, getting over the fear and actually picking it up. She's one of the most kind of loved and memorable women heroines in literature. So in this one, Anna is a sophisticated woman who abandons her empty existence as wife of Corinne and turns to Count Vronsky to fill her passionate nature with tragic consequences. And that's kind of all I know about it. I know that she leaves her husband, has this affair. I think they end up in Italy for a period of time, and then something goes on with like the Russian society. That's kind of all I know, but it just sounds really good. I know there's a film, so I think when I do get around to reading this, I'll read it and then watch the film. It is a chunky one, and actually, there's a little point here. I found when I've been reading classics last year, I find it really helpful to have like a physical or ebook, reading it, but also having an audiobook, and I feel like it really gets me into the story more. So yes, this is a big one. It's a big one, but I think we will enjoy it, guys. I think we will. And yeah, it's one I've been wanting to get to for a really long time. And actually, on a side note, quite a few of these classics on the list are on the Rory Gilmore list, which this year I want to read 10 from that list. Last year was 20, didn't make it, but I read like 16 or something, so I did okay in the end. But yes, some of these will help towards that goal, and they're books that I really want to. I've really enjoyed classics last year, and I want to read a few more, you know, guys, you know. Then the next one, which I have on ebook, I don't physically have it here, is 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. And just before we get into what this one's about, guys, I have a history with Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I read Love in the Time of Cholera back in like 2017, and I want to say it was February 2017, and guys, I didn't like it. I really didn't like it. So it was like the first year that I was like probably like, you know what, Goodreads account, I'm gonna, you know, I was setting myself a task of reading one book a week because I'd gotten a bit slack on my reading. I was like, yes. I didn't like hit that number, but I did really well. I got to 30 something, and I really stuck to it, guys. But I had this really rigid view of I had to only read one book at one time, and I had to finish it before I moved on to anything else, which I do not do that now. Like, I will sometimes read one book at a time, but more often than not, I have like 2 or 3 on the go, because, like, you know, that's the way I am. That's the way I am. And I basically forced myself through the book, and I hate that now. I didn't like it, but I think forcing myself to finish it added an extra level of hate, because I feel like if I put it aside and tried again, I would have probably still not liked it, but I wouldn't have hated it as much. Or if I just DNF'd it, because I wasted time, guys. I wasted so much time reading that book that I did not like. So you're probably thinking, why? Why are you wanting to read another one of his books? Well, 100 Years of Solitude is, again, another one that's quite acclaimed. A lot of people like it. It's always on the list of books you have to read. And I thought, you know what, let's give him a second chance. I can try and give it a go, see if I like it. You know, maybe his writing isn't for me, and we're going to find that out, but it's one that people will say you have to read. I know it's a multi-generational story following one family. It chronicles through a century, and it goes through 6 generations of the family. And so you're learning bits and pieces about each generation in the family. You go through them, and so like my understanding is like with this family, I think they very much in this town village that they're in, they are like the leaders of helping the village grow, like introduce things to the village, and they help like kind of grow it. And it's following this multi-generational saga, and I quite like multi-generational sagas. I like those multi-generation kind of books. I read Homegoing 2020, which again, it follows like different generations, and I just kind of love that story, and it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out, and hopefully I will like it, guys, and it's not going to be like love in the time of cholera, because we can't repeat that experience, guys. We cannot repeat it. So then the next one that I have is Black No More, and it's by George S. Schuler. So this one I heard Spoopy Hall speak about it in one of her vlogs. I can't remember, it was quite a few months ago. And I hadn't heard anyone speak about this one before from what I'd seen. And it is a classic. It's written in like the 1930s. Published in 1931, guys. It was published in 1931. And it's one I hadn't heard anyone really speak about, and I was so intrigued by this premise. And it sounds like it's going to be a really accessible classic. I tend to find the ones from the 20s and 30s, for me anyway, I find them quite accessible. So I'm just going to read you the synopsis. But yes, super intrigued by this one, and this is why I really want to read it. It's also available in Scribd, which is great. So what would happen to the race problem in America if black people turned white? Would everybody be happy? These questions are and more answered in hilariously in Black No More. So it's a story of Max Disher, a dapper black rogue of an insurance man who, through a scientific transformation process, becomes Matthew Fisher, a white man. Matt dreams up a scam that allows him to become the leader of the Knights of Nordica, a white supremacist group, as well as to marry the white woman who rejected him when he was black. Black No More is a hysterical explanation of race and its self-serving definitions. If you can't beat them, turn into them. And then also here at the bottom it says, the fertile artistic period now known as the Harlem Renaissance, 1920 to 1930, gave birth to many of the world-renowned masters of black literature and is the model for today's renaissance of black writers. Didn't know that, guys. But yes, it sounds super intriguing. Also, I think it's an intriguing concept. I'd love to see how it's been played out and written, but it's also the time that it was written in that I think gives it that extra kind of, you know, I want to read it. Because it was written in the 1930s, when obviously race relations was not good then. I mean, they're still not that great now, but you know, it was much earlier. If you think, like, you know, at that time it was like way worse race relations, and I think it's just such an interesting concept. So I want to see how this is actually panned out and how it's working. Yes, it sounds super intriguing, and like I said, the books from like 1920s and 30s for me I found is quite accessible in their writing. So yes, super intriguing. And like, apart from Spoopy Hall, I have not heard anyone speak about this, but then again, I don't follow a lot of booktubers that are like huge classics fans. But if you've read it, let me know and what you thought of it, because honestly, super intriguing for me, and I really want to read it. Next, I then have Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. Now, I'm pretty sure I read this when I was younger, but I'm not 100% sure. I've seen like the 1994 film, it was 94. I've not seen the latest one, which is now on Netflix. I really want to watch it. And I will, guys, I will. But this was on last year's list, but I never got round to it. And yeah, in case you don't know what it's about, it's following four sisters. It's Meg, Jo, Beth and Amy, growing up with plenty of spirit but little money during the Civil War era in New England, and it's about these four sisters and their lives. It's partly based on Louisa's kind of, her and her sisters, her family, from what I've heard. It's one that I really want to read. Yeah, I've seen the film, I enjoy the film, and I just want to read the book, you know, and yeah, have that experience, guys, have that experience. Okay, and the next one, which, guys, it was also on last year's list, was Don Quixote by Cervantes. So yes, this was on last year's list. Again, it's another chunky one. It's less than Anna Karenina by being just under 800 pages, guys. And this is generally considered like the first modern novel. And this would be one of the oldest classics I have read once I've read it, because I've never read anything this old. So it was written like in the early 1600s. So yes, it would be like the oldest classic I've ever read once I do, but it's considered the first kind of modern novel, and people seem to love it. My impression is it's a bit of like an adventure type story. So I'm going to read the synopsis to you. So Don Quixote has become so entranced reading tales of chivalry that he decides to turn knight errant himself. In the company of his faithful squire, Sancho Panza, those These exploits blossom in all sorts of wonderful ways. While Quixote's fancy often leads him astray, he tilts at windmills, imagine them to be giants. Sancho acquires cunning and a certain sagacity. Sane madmen and wise fool, they roam the world together, and together they have haunted readers' imaginations for nearly 400 years. Yes, it gives that kind of, I don't know, it gives me that adventure sort of story vibe. And like I said, it was one that was on my list last year. I'm going to get to it. I am trying to read some bigger novels this year. I didn't do too bad last year. I did have some, but I tend to read under 500 pages. But I can read big books, guys. I can read big books. And we're going to tackle these big ones, guys. We will. Honestly, I promise you I'm going to do much better at this list than I did last year. The next one that I have on my list is Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. This was not on last year's list, guys. It was not. It is written in it was published in 1932, this one. It is a dystopian, and it's largely set in a futuristic world state of genetically modified citizens and an intelligent-based society hierarchy. The novel anticipates huge scientific developments in reproductive technology, sleep learning, psychological manipulation, and classical conditioning that are combined to make a utopian society that goes challenged by only by a single outsider. And yes, it's one of those like really like intriguing ones to me, like dystopian, but it has like a bit of science fiction kind of vibes to it as well. And it's kind of, yeah, I'm super intrigued by it. And like I said, I try and read, I'm going from one extreme to the other with my classics. I try old ones, but also more newer classics. You know, and technically, is this a modern classic? I think this would be technically be a modern classic. I don't know. But yes, it's super intriguing. It's kind of like, you know, 1984 as well. It's just one of those ones that you hear people speaking about. And yeah, I just really want to pick it up. And I do love a good dystopian. I do love dystopians. So I think guys, that I'm going to get well with it. Hopefully, fingers crossed. And then the next one I have on my list is Jane Eyre, and it's by Charlotte Bronte. I have never read any of the Bronte sisters books at all. I think I may have started this one at high school, like very briefly, and I was like, I do not get on with this writing. And yeah, like DNF'd it basically, or put it aside because I didn't really get on with books of that time period at that time of my life, whereas now, you know, I can read Austen's, which is the same like in the 1800s, etc. I've read other classics that are a little bit later on, a little bit before, so yes, I'm gonna try it again. It is one that I always hear people speaking about, and well, all of these really. It's one that, yeah, you hear people speaking about. And they're always saying, like, you know, the Bronte sisters are also so well known with their writing that I think I should finally actually read at least one of their books. And Jane Eyre, it has inspired so many other like modern novels. They've done like Jane Eyre kind of retellings and twists, and I feel like I should read the original source material. So this is like a gothic novel. It tells the story of orphan Jane, a child of unfortunate circumstances, raised and treated badly by her aunt and cousins, and eventually sent away to a cruel boarding school. It's not until Jane becomes a governess at Thornfield that she finds happiness. Meek, measured but determined, Jane soon falls in love with her brooding and stormy master, Mr. Rochester. But it's not long before strange and unnerving events occur in the house, and Jane is forced to leave Thornfield to pursue her future. And yes, I've heard good things about it, guys. I've heard good things about it. And I do love gothic vibes in literature as well. So it's going to be fun. And like I said, then there's so many other like retellings, etc. that are based on this one. So it's one that I definitely want to pick up and yeah, see what it's all about. And the 10th and final book on this list is Go Tell It on a Mountain, and it's by James Baldwin. So again, this is like a modern classic, so I think it was released like around 1950 or early 1950s. And yes, I've heard such great things about James Baldwin's work, and I've never picked up any of his books. This is his first one, the first novel that he wrote. So I think, you know, it's a good place to start with his first one, and then I can progress through his works. But I have heard that his writing is fantastic. So in this one, drawing on James Baldwin's own boyhood in a religious community in the 1930s Harlem, his first novel tells the story of a young Johnny Grimes. Johnny is destined to become a preacher like his father, Gabriel, at the Temple of the Fire baptized, where the church swells with song, and it is as if the Holy Ghost were riding on in there. But he feels only scalding hatred for Gabriel. His fear and phantasm lead him to abuse his family. Johnny vows that for him things will be different. The blazing tale is full of passion and guilt, of secret sinners and prayers singing on the wind. So yes, it sounds like it's gonna be really interesting. And so I read like Passing last year, and that was also set around like 1920s or so in like Harlem, New York, and I like that vibe. I like, you know, that time. So it's gonna be interesting to see how this one is written, what plays out, what exactly happens in the story. But yes, I've heard his writing is fantastic. That is all 10 books, classics that I want to read in 2022. I think I'll do better than this year, guys. I really do. And you know, I think it's because I've got more of a variety, whereas last year basically all of the classics that I had on that list were like old classics. There weren't any modern classics really. There was maybe one modern classic, but the rest were like just classics. Whereas this time I think I've got a good mix of some modern classics in there, so I think it'll help me get through it. And I am, you know, if I'm not getting on with it, I'm going to DNF it. You know, we don't want another Love in the Town of Cholera, guys. We don't want that. So I will DNF if I feel like I'm not vibing with it. But yes, I think I'll do better. That's all the ones I want to read. Let me know if you are planning on reading any classics, or if you've read any of these, and let me know what it's all about. Yep, comment, like, subscribe, and I will hopefully see you on the next one. Bye.